If we can eradicate smallpox, why can't we eradicate the flu? Influenza virus has pretty much every characteristic that a virus needs to have in order to not be able to be eradicated. The biggest factor is the fact that there are multiple animal reservoirs for influenza, so humans are not the only ones that can get infected. Influenza A strains can also infect birds and pigs. However, the flu cannot easily jump between birds and humans due to a difference in receptor types, which the receptors what the virus uses to get into the cells to actually infect them in order to be able to replicate and cause infection. But pigs have both types of receptors that humans and birds have, and so pigs are kind of like a mixing pot for transmission from influenza in birds to influenza in humans. Another factor that prevents eradication of influenza is the fact that influenza can undergo antigenic drift, which is when there are mutations in the genome of influenza virus that result in changes in HA and NA epitopes, which I'm sure you've heard of, like H1N1 influenza and stuff like that. That's how influenza is differentiated based on the different epitopes of the HA and NA. And when these mutations cause changes in HA or NA or both, it becomes just different enough to where your immune system does not recognize it as the same virus that it may have previously been infected with. And so your body doesn't have that immune memory to fight it off as quickly as it would if you got infected with the same exact influenza strain you'd previously had. This usually causes local epidemics or local outbreaks of the mutated flu, but antigenic shift versus drift. So antigenic shift is what causes global pandemics. This is when two different strains of influenza infect one cell and their genomes actually combine in progeny viruses that are produced. If this reassortment results in a new type of HA, or it can be introduced into humans, and if it is transmissible, it can be a really big problem because our bodies have no defense against it because it does not recognize this virus at all. So there's a complete lack of memory immune response. This is also why influenza vaccines are only effective if that specific strain is the one that's circulating that year. Influenza mutates and evolves so quickly that every year there's a different influenza vaccine that has to be put out because there's a different strain of influenza that is more prominent. And that's why even if we do pick the right strain of influenza to make the vaccine, if you just happen to get infected with a different strain that's not the major strain of the year, you can still get sick and have just as severe of disease as if you hadn't been vaccinated because it only prevents severe disease of that one strain of influenza. So despite the fact that influenza virus has been researched for many, many years, we still don't have a way to eradicate it. And I don't see that happening anytime soon because the fact that there are so many animal reservoirs and it is so transmissible and the rate of reinfection is so high and it mutates so fast, it is just impossible to get ahead of influenza, unfortunately. I'm probably gonna make this a little series of different viruses or bacteria, just different pathogens and why we can't eradicate them. But I will give a spoiler that a lot of them are due to the fact that there are animal reservoirs or just different environmental reservoirs, whether that be insect vectors or whatnot. Many different ways, but we can get into more specific examples in coming videos.